Okay. Hi, and welcome to Chef Tip Tuesday with Chef Veronica. I'll be getting started in about 30 seconds. I want to thank you for joining me today. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I won't keep you long today. I went a little over last week on my Chef Tip Tuesday about customer service, which we all know that that's a lot of area to cover. So quite naturally, you would go over. And I also mentioned that I will be touching bases on a few of those things as we move along on Chef Tip Tuesday. So first, I want to talk about food safety. So when I went to culinary school, the first class that I took was Serve Safe. And when you take a class like that, so I didn't do, and it's nothing against anyone that goes online and takes Serve Safe, where it's a 2-day course or 8-hour course. I'm not even sure how many hours it is, but I took Serve Safe for a semester. So you could imagine how a little more intense that was. And the professor, chef, well, he wasn't a chef, but the professor that was teaching the class, he was actually a food inspector. So we got a lot of stories and a lot of things behind the scenes that he told us about in dealing with going out to companies and evaluating and making sure that they were up to code and up to standard and keeping the food safe that we all are going to these restaurants eating. So when I first took the class, I was real anal about a lot of stuff. I would even go, I remember going to Chipotle's and I was standing back behind the counter and I looked and I could see all this dirt and stuff under the counter. And I was like, oh, I'm not eating here because that means they don't move their stuff. They don't clean behind and all of that stuff. So, when you're taking a course like that and it's intense, you pretty much notice everything. And so not to really get off into the Serve Safe class, but I just want to say this, for a lot of people out there that have taken Serve Safe, and you're a caterer, you're a chef, maybe you even just work from home and you wanted to take Serve Safe so you can be a little more safe at home. Well, a lot of times with anything, when we get training and stuff, if we're not implementing that training all the time, you can kind of get laxed in it. So I know when I was in school, we always had to wear a hairnet. So quite naturally, I don't want to see hair in my food. And I don't want to have hair in my clients' food. So I make sure that my staff, we wear hairnets. But I realize in the industry, just out here watching different caterers, different chefs and things. And like I said, nothing to take away from anything that anybody else is doing. I'm just talking about what we do here at Where the Heart Is. Because all I can do is speak from experience and speak about the standard that I have put in place. A hairnet is a must because hair is always flying. We always, especially women, we're always touching our hair, not even doing it consciously, but you can find yourself rubbing your hands in your hair and doing all this and pushing your hair behind your ear. And, sometimes we want to do the cute thing and, throw our hair. But anyway, I got braids. I can't do all that. But, so we wear hair nets at Where the Heart Is Catering. Now, that's when we're out in the public. Now, when I'm at home or at the facility where we cook, I have a scarf on my head or I have a hairnet. So even with the braids, I will take these braids and I will tuck them like this. I'll wrap my scarf right here, tie it, and then bring it right back to the front and tie it here. Because I'm serious about having my hair covered when dealing with food. You can even wear a hat. Whatever you need to do to make sure that hair is not getting into people's food, you might want to consider that just a little side note, it's just an extra step that you take. I know even with my nails, I don't even wear nails anymore. I stopped wearing nails before I got into the catering field. However, once I came into the catering field, nails were not even an option because I keep my nails cut down real low. They're actually longer than they should be right now, but I will be cutting those on this Saturday because I'll be dealing in food. Why do you want to clip your nails? You want to clip your nails because you get dirt, bacteria, and all that stuff under your nails. So you want to keep your nails short. I know some people have nails and they work in the food industry, which is fine if you're wearing gloves. But what I found out with the gloves on, your nails will cut through the glove and you find yourself constantly picking through and changing your gloves. Just have you ever seen someone just sitting around and they're doing like this and they're getting the food from underneath their nails and stuff? Could you imagine someone working in food safety and dealing with something that you're gonna eat and their nails are super duper long? So those are just little sidebar things that I want to share about the hairnet, keeping your hair covered, even when you're at home cooking for your family. Even though it's your kids and your family and things like that, they don't want no hair in their food either. You want to be mindful of where you keep things in your kitchen. It's no reason. Now, this is another thing that we learned in Serve Safe. If you have a rack in your kitchen, nothing should be on the bottom of that rack that is uncovered. So it's not even an option to have sugar or flour down on the lower level on your shelf. But that's a whole nother story. But what I really want to talk to you about today is presentation with your food and being mindful of how you cut up your food and being skilled with your knife. Now, you don't have to be a chef and a caterer to be skilled with your knife. What I mean by being skilled with your knife is, for one, being safe when using the knife. You know how you see a lot of chefs chopping and things like that and they're not looking. That's fine. Some people can do it, but don't practice that at home. Look at the knife, watch yourself cut so you don't cut your finger. So let's talk about when you're cutting up peppers or onions or pineapples. Are there any fruits or vegetables that you really don't enjoy cutting up? I remember when I first got into the catering industry and we started doing appetizer display tables, which is our fruit displays. I hated cutting up pineapples because they always had the nubs on them. It seemed like you had to cut off so much of it in order to get down to just the yellow where you don't have all the nubs on it. But as time went on, I sat back, and even one of my workers that used to come over and help cut up fruit, we didn't have a love affair going on with the pineapple. However, one day I was just sitting back and I thought about it. I said, think of a way to cut up the pineapple. Now, I know they tell you on the package, on the little label that's on the pineapple, how to cut up a pineapple. However, that one wasn't working for me for what I needed the pineapple for. So what I started doing, I said, okay, I'm going to cut off the head and the butt, which is the cone part, the green part that comes up. I cut that part off, and then I cut the bottom part off. Then I cut it in half and cut it in quarters. Once I get the quarters, then I just shave the skin off of the pineapple. Once I realized that was a thing, me cutting up the pineapple, how I was cutting it up, that was a thing of the past. And then I went into thinking, okay, what other items are you cutting that you're not really thinking about how you're cutting them that can really make your job much easier? Because when you're in the food industry, you're always looking for things to make your job easier, more efficiently, but still giving your clients the best look that you can give them as possible. So what I started doing with a bell pepper, I said, you know what? You can do the same, keep the same technique, cut off the butt and the head of the bell pepper. So now you have the bell pepper that sits like this. You cut off the top, cut off the bottom, and then I just cut the sides off, which then give me a square. So then with the square, then I knew that I could cut them into strips. Which then, learning while I was in school, one of my chefs, he was actually my favorite teacher, I actually changed him to be my mentor. While because when you're in culinary school, you don't have advisors, you have mentors. So I actually changed him to being my mentor after, because he kept giving me so many sidebar tips, but at the same time he was always on my back, it seemed like. And then one day he came up to me, and I knew I was slinging stuff, and I was trying my best to get my attitude together, but I just could not. And so I was like, okay, Denise, focus on this. And I'm just slinging stuff. So he came over to me. He said, you want to know why I stay on your back? I said, yes, why? He said, because you have what it takes. And, in the midst of him telling me that, I was still like, whatever, because that's not what I was trying to do. I wanted to cook the French onion soup. You let everybody else pick their soup, and then you give me the bell pepper roasted soup that I don't even eat. But you're giving me this one. This is the hardest one to make. So as time went on, I realized that he was someone that I needed to keep in my pocket, that was always going to be looking out for my best interest. And I didn't even tell them when I was in culinary school that I had a business, because I didn't want them to look at me a certain way and not give me those tips. Because, in the culinary world, in school, women are kind of look at women like, you shouldn't be here. It's more about men. But that's a whole nother story. So going back to that bell pepper. So now you have the bell pepper that's at a square. And if you cut it in strips, you can really control how big it's going to be when it goes into the dish. You can tell how, so I'm always talking about presentation at the same time. So if you're cutting it in strips, you can control if the strip is this long and you need a little shorter, then you go, I'm raising my hand because I want to know what he's talking about. He said, what he's talking about when he said you're not fighting with your food, he said anything that you're eating, whether you're eating it with a spoon or a fork, whatever it is, it should fit on the fork or the spoon. It shouldn't be falling off. Because if it's falling off, when you go to put it in your mouth, that's when you see stuff in the corner of people's mouth and people, or trying to put the food in their mouth. That's what he was talking about when he said fighting with your food. So I took that little sidebar note. And so whenever I'm cutting up fruit, vegetables, or anything like that, I'm always thinking, fine dining. You don't want people fighting with their food. You want people to be able to just grab it and put it in their mouth. Now, if we're talking about pasta, that's a whole different dish, because we know with pasta, you're going to have your spoon and you're always going to twirl. And maybe you're not using the spoon. However, you're always twirling, because if you're eating spaghetti, you're going to keep twirling so it doesn't be falling off. If you're eating panini noodles, you just stick your fork in it and it goes into your mouth. So when I'm talking about that, I'm not talking about pasta, because pasta is a different beast, a different dish. So you eat that a little differently. Another thing, when you're plating, and I know you probably see a lot of YouTube videos, you may see other caterers and chefs out here plating their food and stuff. Another thing I learned, you do not put food on the rim of the plate. The rim of the plate is always clean. You may see people sprinkling parsley all on the rounds of the edges of the plate. In fine dining, they don't do that. The food is sitting right in the center, and that's where the content of your meal is. So that's just a little sidebar information. If you're into when you're plating your food, or when you're prepping your food and cutting up your food, keep in mind, you don't want to have people fighting with trying to get the food in their mouth. So now last week I talked about a customer service thing, and I talked about a whole bunch of things in the customer service area. One thing I want to come back to, because I mentioned own your stuff, and I still say, as a business owner, you need to own your stuff. However, I also mentioned that customers are not always right. Now, that's really a thing of the past. You know how we all were growing. I know when I was growing up, customers are always right. Customers are always right. No, customers are not always right. When you have safeguards in place, and trust and believe, you're always going to be constantly changing. You may be constantly changing your contract, constantly changing information that you put out, because you're always looking to perfect what you're doing. So keep in mind, customers are not always right. So let's get rid of that myth here. When you have things in place that you put out to represent your company, you stand by what you're talking about. What do I mean by that? Now, last week I talked about you want to get things in writing. You know, if your client is a texter and they constantly sending you messages, when they send over something and it goes against something else that they said, you want to send that question back and ask, so are you saying that you're getting rid of this and you want to add this? Because you want to make sure that it's clear. Because when you show up at an event and you may have that miscommunication, because don't get me wrong, anybody can be all over the place, but when clients are actually doing big events and everything, they can tend to be all over the place because they see so many things on Pinterest, so many things on Instagram and Facebook, and they want this and they want that, and they want all of this stuff. But you being a professional, you already know what's gonna work and what's not gonna work, what go together and what doesn't go together. So you have to stand in the office that you hold, which is a professional designer, a caterer, a chef. You have to stand in your office and be willing to give your clients the information that's gonna best help them. Now, if they still want what they want, by all means, you're hired for a service. Go ahead and give them what they want. But you have all of that stuff in writing or in a text message, email, however. So when they come back, because it didn't turn out how they wanted and you had already told them, you can always go back, well, this is what you said you wanted. Okay? Now, it's not to throw anything in anyone's face, but it's to make sure that you keep the standard of being upfront with your clients, holding up your responsibility of the deal, but at the same time, holding your clients responsible for what they said that they wanted, even though it went against what the expert said that you should do. If that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, just throw a question down in the comment box and I'll come back to that. But I just wanted to hit on that about customers always being right, because customers are not always right. And you can use that across the board, just like parents aren't always right about everything. Adults aren't always right about everything. Kids know things. They come here knowing things, but let me not go there. But anyhow, keep in mind, fine dining, you don't fight with your food. When you're cooking at home, you can still have that fine dining. Make sure you're covering your hair if you're in the kitchen cooking. If it could just be a scarf, it could be a hat, it can be a bonnet, it can be any of those things. But the whole thing is that you don't, because when hair gets in the food is contaminated at this point. Who wants to eat? And then your appetite is probably gone now because you see the hair in it. So now it's like, I don't even want that. I remember, I'm not even going to call the name where I was, but I went to this ice cream place. And I had, they used to take the ice cream and they'd mix it up into a cup and make it, and you add the toppings and all that stuff. And so I got it. We got out in the car and I'm getting ready to tear it up, excited. And soon as I put it in my mouth and I was eating it, I felt something in my mouth. And I did like this. And I started pulling a long strand of hair out of my mouth. And I was instantly sick to my stomach. That was number one. Number two, I was irritated. Because I'm sitting up here. And then I go back in there. And they in there don't even have on hats. And hair all over the place. And they doing this and rubbing, let me put my hair in a ponytail. And you grab it. And you never go and wash your hands after that. So, cover your hair. The other thing that I want to talk about is if you're a business, Sonya, don't be calling out names. That is hilarious. But the other thing that I want to talk to you about is when you're doing your, okay, so I'm doing a live every Tuesday, Chef Tip Tuesday. I'm making sure I come on. Whenever you're out and you're doing things like this, represent your brand. You see, I'm going to wear Where the Heart Is catering all the time because you never know who's watching. It's an easy fix. Now, the last week I thought about it, I was like, I'm going to just put on, and I said, no, you're building a brand. Always be willing to represent your brand. When I go out to the store, just like I know when I get off this live today, I'm going out shopping because I have some events coming up, so I need to go shopping. I'm going to I'm putting on a jacket today because it's cold. I'm going to have on my Where the Heart Is jacket, that says where the heart is on it, and it says Chef Veronica over here. And what I found out is this: when I'm out and I'm moving around in stores and things like this, people tend to get out of my way. I don't know if it's that they think I'm trying to get in here and get out for an event, but it works for me. The other thing is the cashiers tend to pack up my bags better than they do when I'm just in there in my civilian clothes. I'm gonna say that again. In other words, you get a little more respect when I'm wearing my business stuff, representing. People know you're a catering company. Oh, well, I don't want to pack her stuff up any kind of way. So always be willing to represent your brand, no matter what your business is. If you are in business for yourself and you building a brand, it's up to you to actually put your brand out in front of people and build your brand. I'm not going to be sitting up here in a well, anyway, I'm not going to be up here in another chef jacket representing someone else's company when I have my own company that I can make sure that I'm representing. So with that said and done, those are your tips for Chef Tip Tuesday on today. If you have any questions, I'm going to be here another 2 minutes. You can put your question down at the bottom. And if not, we're going to go ahead and exit off. I want to thank you all for being on the call. I see you, Sonia and Trina and LaShawn. Hey, Kim, Daisy, Sweetness Matthews. Thank you all for logging on. Helene, Vernus. I thank you all for being here. I truly thank you all for taking this journey with me. It's truly an honor to be able to share some of the things that I know and some of the things that I use and things that have helped me along the way. Because keep in mind, no matter who you are and what you're doing, if your cup is always full, you can't get anything else in. So you always have to be willing to share and give out. Hey, Tina. Give out and share. We're all in this together. We're all going places. So if I have something that I can share with you to help you build your business or help you get along in this thing called life even better, hey, I'm an open book. And I can't say that I've always been like that. When I first came into the industry, I was like, I don't know. I'm not telling people this, where I do this and where I get that and all that. No, I share. I have grown. And one thing about it, what is for you is for you. And so you have to keep on. Hey, Honeysuckle Red. Hey, Tina. I think I said that. But yeah, so you have to be willing to grow. So if I can share something to help you get along better, I'm willing to share. And that's pretty much all I have for you today. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you all next Tuesday.